NIL Now with Lauren Sisler and Kevin Jones.
If you want to learn more about name, image, and likeness, you need to go to The Source. The NIL Now podcast from Headline Studio and Reddit highlights the biggest storylines with comments from key guests in the college and high school NIL space.
NIL is not a cherry on top. It needs to be thought about as a part of these young men and women's future to, further their careers. You should be able to leave college with something.
Subscribe to NIL Now on Apple, Spotify, Google, or wherever you listen to podcasts.
The Trailblazers have pulled the plug on the season. Welcome to the Blazer Focus podcast, where we have on our 10th year a la the 1981 comedy classic Stripes. I'm Bill Murray. I'm claiming Bill Murray, Craig. Anyway, we are riding out the rest of the season all the way to the lottery. I am Aaron Fentress. I cover the Blazers for the Oregonian and OregonLive. And I'm joined by Craig Birnbach, who has been telling me for 3 months that this is where the season was headed. Yep. I held on for dear life. I made excuse after excuse. I did all sorts of market corrections. But here we are, right where Craig said we were going to be. It's a disaster. They are tanking. They just got smashed by the Pelicans last night. It's just bloodshed left and right, but the youngins are getting experience. Anyway, Craig, how are you doing?
I'm all right. I appreciate that. I mean, you let me. I don't even have to say anything. You gave it
preemptive.
It was gave me the victory lap.
It was like Rabbit in 8 Mile.
I didn't want to be right.
It was like Rabbit in 8 Mile. What can you say now? Go ahead and tell these people something I didn't get wrong. Boom. So you can't say anything now.
I mean, I wish I wasn't right. I kept saying, I hope that I'm wrong. I'm hoping this team's better than I think it is. I'm hoping that, they'll be able to make a move or two that would elevate them. And I also told you when they made the trades, they were a worse team, and you were convinced they were a better team, and they were not. So now here's the part that I don't, and it's just like a pet peeve. I love that fans are, and others that cover the team they're passionate, but the evaluation of these games now, of saying, oh, Shaedon Sharpe at 29, shouldn't he be the starter next year? And he's going to be an all-star. And then the next game, he goes, he gets 12. It's like, oh, I guess he's not going to be that guy. It's like none of this. Yes, they get playing time, but none of this matters in my world. I don't see it as mattering.
Okay, we will talk about that. First of all, let me clarify something about the be worse or better. Still, at the end of the day, injuries did matter. They did not have their best 4 players playing together more than 4 or 5 times. Most of the time, 2 of the 4 were out. So, yeah, when Nurkic and Ant are out, they're not going to be very good, and they weren't. But when all 4 were together, they were pretty good. That's just a fact. But regardless, I'm not going to beat that. I'm not going to say beat that horse to death because Peter will call, but I'm not going to beat that point to death. All right, let's get to point A, and we're going to get to the Shaedon Sharpe thing in a minute because I sort of agree and disagree. All right, the Blazers have shut things down. They won't publicly admit it. I've asked twice now, Billups. So does this mean Damian's done? And he's like, he's day to day. I'm like, well, what's going on here? Well, everyone's kind of, being cautious, and we're kind of going to. There's no way Dame's going to play again. It makes 0 sense for him to play. All right, so he's done. Ant's probably done. Nurkic is done. Grant's done. Those guys are just chilling. They are gone from the locker room before we ever even get there. Although I've seen Grant around a couple of times. They didn't reach the plan. They got the 3 games down. There was 11 to go, and then they kind of pulled the plug, which made sense because they were going to have to pretty much go 9-2 at that point, which we all know wasn't going to happen since I think they had lost 11 of 12 or something. Anyway, so
and also making the play-in and accidentally making the playoffs was not going to make them better next year.
Right. But I mean, they were definitely
They'd lose
trying,
a lottery pick.
No one can say they weren't trying. They were trying until it was pretty much done because Dame was out there playing. So to me, they were still trying. They beat Utah. Anyway, so just in general, how do you feel about the decision to just pull the plug when they did?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I've said it weeks ago. It doesn't make any sense. It does not help the team to make the playoffs and possibly lose a lottery pick. I mean, that's it. That's what would have happened. They weren't going to upset Denver, and if they didn't make if they made the playoffs, they lose a lottery pick. So why would you want to do that? This team is not, one little piece away.
Right.
They're big pieces away, and there's a huge piece at number 1, and there's a pretty darn good piece at number 2. I've been saying it forever. It made no sense to try to make the playoffs. All making the playoffs would have done was sell some tickets and made you probably less likely to win a championship in the Damian Lillard window.
Okay. Well, I think you play it to what you are until you you fall out of it. I think they tried to make the playoffs. Had they been good enough to make the playoffs, then it's worth it to make the playoffs. In the end, you don't want every team saying, well, we're not going to the championship, we might as well tank. That would destroy the league. So I think teams, if they can make the playoffs, you try to make the playoffs until a certain point. So yes, at the end of the day, though, I wrote an article last week about this. At the end of the day, having a high lottery pick is the best thing that could happen for a lot of different reasons, because that pick becomes a nice little trade chip, which I've been told that the goal definitely 100% is to try and flip that pick into a star, which they tried to do last year. It didn't work out with Shaedon, but maybe they can this year. We'll see. But yeah, I mean, I know for fans, you want to see your team win, but I think this team tried. They had too many injuries they couldn't overcome. So at the end of the day, yes.
They were not good.
Okay. When they were healthy, they were good, period.
I disagree, but that's fine.
When those four played, they were over 500. That's what I'm gonna say. The bench was not there enough to support one or two of those guys being out. So yeah, depth was an issue. Anyway, all right. So we both agree tanking's good.
Well, tanking's the best course of action now. Yeah.
So
it's not good.
So let's move.
It's bad.
So let's move on to then the value of this lottery pick. Use it, trade it. What say you?
Well, it depends on where you land. I think if you're one or two, you definitely don't trade it, in my opinion. If you got these two players in Wemby and Scooter that people think are franchise-changing players, unless someone hands you Joel Embiid, sure, of course. I'll trade it for Joel Embiid. I'll trade it for Kevin Durant. But
I would not Durant.
He's all right. Okay. Fine.
I was just over Durant. No, I understand, but Durant's gonna be 35. Like, yeah,
fine. Then don't do it. But the window with Dame is so short, right, at this point, that I and that's not going to happen. So he's not getting traded from the Suns for one or two, and they wouldn't do it. So if you don't, I think they do. If you land anywhere between 5 and it's kind of a crazy question. Of course, you trade it depending on who you get, right? If Joel Embiid, I make the trade. Giannis, I make the trade. Luka, I make the trade.
Tatum,
right? So
I make
of course,
the trade.
Right?
Bam, do you make it for Bam? Do you make it for Bam? Siakam? No, not Bam.
Not top 4. Not top 4, probably. I don't.
Who's at 3 and 4 right now? That's that good. Is there anyone? There's no one at 3 and 4.
I don't know. I'd have to. I'm not. We haven't done that, but I just think I don't think Bam would go fourth in the draft.
Oh, and
I don't know.
Bam? He's an all-star.
I don't know. Depending on what, he wouldn't go 1 or 2. We know that from what everyone's saying.
So, all right.
I don't know enough about the draft other than to talk draft right now, other than to say it depends who you're giving me, but of course I would look to move the pick if I don't land 1 or 2 to try to get an all-star to pair with Damian Lillard, who will be 33 in July. It doesn't make any sense to not try to keep Damian and give him a chance for championships. And the only way you do that is by getting another all-star here.
Right. So, yeah, we pretty much agree, other than maybe some nuances. So the Wemby thing, obviously he's being billed as a generational unicorn. I don't know how you can have more than one generational talent, but there seems to always be like 10 or 15 generational things in our world today, which of course doesn't make any logical sense. But yeah, he's projected to be this amazing player, blah, blah, blah. That's all nice and well and good. However, if your number one goal is to win a championship with Damian, you have, as far as I'm concerned, 3 more years after this at the max where you can say that Damian can impact winning a championship. I don't know what Damian's going to be at going into a season at 35 for a point guard. We'll see if he's your best player at 35. I just don't necessarily believe at 35 he's going to be good enough to still do what you would need him to do. I don't know how many players have ever been that good at 35. I mean, even Jordan retired at 35 the first time when he really retired. He was showing a little signs of declining a little bit. Kobe at 35 too. I mean, he had the Achilles, but still, I mean, that you start getting up there at 35. So to me, 3 years at the max, probably a 2-year window. If that's your goal, anything is open. If I had the number one pick, yes, I believe this guy is going to be great. But is he going to be championship great inside the next 3 or 4 years? We don't know that. People get so caught up in these like, there's so much hype around drafts, and people act like, oh my God, this guy's going to be blah. LeBron is one of the greatest players we've ever seen. He got his team to the finals after a few years in the sorry, but East, but he wasn't really truly necessarily contending. He would have never made the finals in the West. So my point is, if Wemby is going to be LeBron talent wise, then you don't trade that, period. But we don't know that's going to be the case. So if I'm getting Embiid, done, right? If I can get Tatum, but it's not going to happen, done. I would trade Wemby for any of those guys because now I'm a true contender for the next 2 or 3 years, and that's the goal. I would not go as far as like Bam or Siakam probably for Wemby, but anyone else two on, I'd give up that pick all day. We don't know what these guys are going to be. I mean, Jalen Green's really good. Cade Cunningham had a nice rookie year. There's so many good young players that come in and they're good, but are they necessarily franchise changing? Are they going to win, make you automatic contenders? That's all. We don't know. That's going to play out in the next 4 or 5 years. I'm not waiting that long. So yes, I would trade this pick in a heartbeat if I can get any type of legitimate all-star, especially a big in here. And with the Jaylen Brown situation, with him griping in Boston, if that guy becomes available, I'm all over it, and I would definitely trade the pick. Not one, but I would trade any other pick.
Yeah, I don't know enough about Scooter to know, is he Michael Jordan-esque, or something like that. But one, I mean, I'm fine with that. Obviously, for Joel Embiid, I trade, everything, and I'd think hard about the one because he's not super old. I just don't want to. What I'm saying is, you don't roll. You risk a lot to make sure you try to give Damian Lillard a chance, but you don't risk not picking Michael Jordan, Kevin Durant, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. You know what I mean? You don't risk, not getting a guy like LeBron, somebody that'll change you forever for 10 years.
I mean, yeah, it depends.
I don't risk this guy that they're saying is 7'4", and I've seen what he's done. For Joel Embiid, I'd have to really, really, that's you got me on some of that. Like, you're like, okay, but you're right. The window is so small with Damian. They haven't figured it out in over a decade on how to get him to the finals. You know what I'm saying? Like, so, and now this was his best year when he played. I will say, I thought, we talked about him, like, if he's healthy, he'll still be great. And I was so excited to see what an explosive Damian Lillard would look like. And I got to tell you, it was impressive.
Yeah.
I mean, his speed was impressive.
Yeah.
He got to the rim like he never really done before, matched with his shooting, which was still elite and, beyond elite. So if he could do that again next year with an elite talent, they have a chance. But even with two guys, it's not that easy. So I don't think there's anything that would make me trade number one other than, a miracle decision by Philly or somebody like that. Or obviously Milwaukee, I'd trade it for Giannis,
Yeah, I'd trade it for Tatum. That's not going to happen, but I'd trade it for Tatum.
Yeah, I mean, I see that. I would have to think about that a little bit just because of the size.
Like a lot of these tall, lanky guys end up having body problems.
Look, it could be awful. Look, come on, we're doing a Blazers podcast. Do we really even have to say anything about the fact that drafting big men is risky? I mean, come on. Like, I'm not even gonna recognize that as having to be brought up. Of course, it's a huge risk.
If I'm his age, if I'm his representation, I'm saying the Blazers cannot draft him.
Right, exactly. I'm like, you're holding out. You stay in France. They get the number one pick. You stay in France, baby.
Not going to Portland, bro.
That is true.
Not going to Portland. Okay, so
all right.
Let's say they got number one, and they say, yeah, we're keeping this guy. He's going to be amazing. Mm-hmm. If he is an impact player, not he's not going to be all-star caliber probably, but if he's coming off the bench even and just being a force or doing whatever he's doing, then you still have other assets to go out and get something else, right? So, with that Knicks pick is going to be huge.
And Aaron, let's not forget the one element that you always throw in is that NBA players control their own destiny quite a bit. And as soon as you get a 7'4", point guard dribbling, 3-point shooting, guy, suddenly there are going to be a lot of guys that want to play with him and Damian Lillard, right?
Right.
So it makes that situation a lot different.
Yeah.
I mean, we're just dreaming here with less than 10% chance, but why not?
Well, it'll be exactly 10% if they finish fifth. They're tied with Orlando right now, so they're sinking fast. Orlando's been playing well, God bless them. Anyway, but then you have Ant, you have Sharpe, you have the Knicks pick, and obviously you're going to keep this year's pick, which means now the 24 pick becomes lottery protected with the Bulls. They can always negotiate with the Bulls and say, hey, we want to take away the lottery protection on this, which I would imagine the Bulls would agree to, because then they would have that pick, because they can then use it and they can wheel and deal with that pick as well. So then you can trade 23, 25, 27. So you have those 3 picks plus that Knicks pick and Sharpe and Ant. So if you kept your pick, you'd still have multiple picks to trade moving forward in Ant and Sharpe. So if you got Wemby, then you can go out and maybe get OG. If Jaylen Brown's available, maybe you can get Jaylen Brown. Maybe Miami, if they decide to blow it up, maybe you can get a Tyler Hero or Tyler Hero wouldn't be a big splash, but he would definitely be someone you could play at the 2 instead of Ant and then move Ant for something. There's all sorts of different things you can do. Maybe they can get Bam, Siakam, et cetera, et cetera. And then now you're looking pretty sweet. If you go out there with, Dame, OG, Matisse, Grant, Nurk, Wemby coming off the bench, that looks pretty good. What?
Wemby's not coming off the bench.
Oh, he's not starting. He's not starting.
Oh god.
Oh, no way.
Okay, we'll see.
He's gonna be, dude. He's gonna be a liability in some ways. He's way too skinny, dude. He's way too small. He doesn't know the game. He's gonna be a mistake-prone little kid. That big dudes are just gonna go right at him. Even the wing guys are going to go dunk on him because they outweigh him by 30 pounds. He's not blocking their shot. Guys are going to power right through that kid. There's no way I'd start him if I'm trying to win. Anyway, that's a debate for another time if they ever get him. But let's say realistically, it's just end up at 5 and 6. They still have a lot of ammunition. And this is it. Like, this is the summer. If they can't take a top 10 pick in this draft, Sharpe, Ant, Knicks pick, 25, 27, assuming they get rid of 24 to the Bulls. If they can't go out with those 6 assets and pull off a deal if someone's available, it ain't never going to happen. And it becomes time to ask Dame, okay, Dame, are you content with the fact that we're never going to contend? Or do you want us to send you to a contender? You agree?
Yeah. I mean, I think this summer is huge at some point in time. And if you're Dame, you're like, if it doesn't happen, even if they try, then you might even say, look, man, I appreciate you trying, but you know where I'm at. I love this place, but I waited, talked to my family. I need to make a run. I'm 33. I got 2 years. I got to go. And appreciate you. And I know that you tried, Joe, but I'm looking at this team. I mean, I could just tell, the press conference after his last press conference after the loss.
Well, yeah, I'm not here for this. Yeah, it's nice watching the growth, but I'm not about that. I'm not trying to babysit. I don't
care.
That's what care about Matisse is, right? I care about Matisse, but I don't care about their development. Doesn't mean a damn thing to him.
He cares all about people caring about people getting better, like he does. He's a good human being and he's a great teammate. But no, he doesn't want to be sitting here. Not just. I mean, look, they're bad. They're the 3rd worst record in the West, and the other 2 teams tried to lose from the jump. Like they just ended up being awful, not competitive for anything of importance, which for him, because he's smarter than we are about basketball. He knows if you're not going to be in the top, if you're not in the top 6, you got no chance. If you're not in the top 4, you probably got no chance. Heck, if you're not in the top 2, your odds of making it to a finals are very difficult. And he looks around and goes, yeah, this didn't happen. Ant didn't jump to All-Star. Grant was really, really good, but he didn't jump. And I'm looking around and I don't see anything. And Nurkic wasn't better. He was Nurkic or worse. He can't. I'm just saying, like, it didn't look like a piece. He doesn't look around and say, I got the pieces here. And now if we just get this one guy.
But he knew that coming in. They didn't have the pieces right now. That they were going to have to make another major trade.
Right. But he thought that they would be better at the, before the All-Star break, and maybe they could make a move. He did not expect to be the 3rd worst team in the West.
But I think he would agree with me.
Correct?
No, I know, but I think he would agree with me that had they been able to be healthy, they wouldn't be in this position.
But it is what it is.
Okay.
I mean, other teams have been really unhealthy and they're going to get in the playoffs. And then you have the Mavs. So I'm just saying, like, I get it. I felt him. Like, you're like, gosh, he doesn't want to be asked, how many years am I going to talk about getting young players better, right? Like, no, I'm an all NBA player, and other all NBA players. There are very few all NBA players that end up where his teams ended up the last 2 years.
Right.
And that's crushing.
Yeah.
Right. It's got to weigh on him.
I do not disagree. So let's go back to this. How hopeful are you that they could actually make a major move this year?
You bring me hope. You bring me hope.
You bring me hope. It's not a song. You
I don't know.
fill
It should
me
be.
up. Go ahead. That's a song somewhere.
Because I've been here almost 15 years. And again, I came here super optimistic about the Blazers. I came in 2007, man. They just got the number 1 overall pick. They were sitting on LaMarcus. They had Brandon Roy. I'm like, when's the parade? Year 2 of my life here, year 3. And I've just seen it being so disappointing that the Blazers haven't been able to make the right move at the right time to get a team to a title.
Yeah,
And
I don't look at anybody though.
I'm not blaming anyone.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, like, it just, I never believed in the small market stuff. I've always said, hey, no, but I just meant it wasn't the only thing. Cause again, I'm a New Yorker. I'm a New York fan. I'm a Knicks fan. I'm like, it hasn't helped. We haven't won since, 73.
If the Knicks had Damian Lillard, they would have attracted dudes.
Sure. Probably. Yeah. But I mean, I grew up with the Knicks and the Nets. There haven't been I have never seen a parade for an NBA basketball team in the New York City metropolitan area. And we were close. Don't get me wrong. We were close. My heart still breaks. John Starks make a shot. Charles Smith make a layup. But I'm just saying, like, I'm more optimistic that it could happen, because when I look out, I don't see it happening. Like, I don't see a team that would make that. Like, I don't believe the Joel Embiid, but I agree what you say. You never know when an NBA player is going to announce that he wants to move on. No one saw the Kevin Durant thing really coming like that to the Suns, right? You saw it when he, in the offseason, saying he wanted to trade, but then you figured, okay, he's going to be all right. Who knows? Luka Doncic gets upset enough in Dallas. He asks out. Maybe he doesn't know about all the cities, right? Maybe he loves Portland. Like, he wants to come. So I have some optimism, but it doesn't go above 50%.
Yeah.
Doesn't go above 50%. I would sit there at 40% chance that they can make a big trade and land an all-star.
Okay. So my whole thing with this franchise for a long time has been that they're going to have to draft their way into contention, that they're just not going to be able to pull off a big time free agent signing, and they're not going to get some star to come here to tip the scales in their favor. And I'm going to stick with that until I see it happen. When it happens, I'll admit I was wrong. If it's ever going to happen, I think this would be a good offseason, because they are going to be loaded with enough assets to overpay someone who may be looking to move someone. But I kind of feel like ultimately they're going to end up making a good but not difference-making move. Like, they might get OG. They might get, I mentioned Tyler Hero before. They might get someone in that range of that ilk. Good, makes you better, but doesn't necessarily make you a contender. I don't believe they're going to get Siakam or Bam or Jaylen Brown or Embiid. Those are the 4 guys who have the best chance to be available. I just don't believe it. And, if it happens, I'll come right here on this podcast and be like, Aaron Fentress was wrong. It took 20 years to prove him wrong, but he was wrong. It happened. So I'm just going to stick with that, because I just don't believe it. I think they're going to be able to make a marginally good move, like the Grant move, maybe something comparable to that, which I think if you got another Grant, I think you're a lot better. And you start Dame, Matisse gives you some defense. You got Grant, Nurkic. I think you're going to make the playoffs if you're healthy. But I just don't see some big major thing. I will say this, though. They tried to trade the 7th pick last year. They couldn't pull it off. But now that 7th pick is Shaedon. So now you have proof of what he can be. So that's going to make that pick / player much more valuable going into this offseason. So I do think there's hope, but I just don't believe it.
Yeah, I mean, we're on the right side of that. We haven't seen it. And I would be a lot more pessimistic without working with you and you kind of saying players become available.
They do. This is where you can get them.
Yep. Right? Nope. You just got to be able to. And I do think Shaedon Sharpe has the potential on him is sky high. I think if he would have played in college, seeing that what we've seen so far, I think he would have been a top 5 pick. I think there's no doubt. Yeah. So that changes things. I don't know where Ant's value is. I think it's lower this year than it was last year, believe it or not. Just because
someone else said that to me too, and I just don't understand that. He didn't play poorly. He
didn't, but his ceiling is, to me, set. I think
his ceiling as a 2-guard playing next to a ball-dominant point guard is set. I don't think disagree. I don't think his ceiling as if he's running the team is set.
Yeah, I don't know if anyone sees him as an all-star point guard. And I think that last year, if you would have traded him, there was someone who might have seen that based on, him just jumping in and being just such his scoring ability, his athleticism.
Yeah, we're going to disagree on this.
But, we'll find out. I mean, because if you think that, now you're looking at 2 guys potentially at their age that you could put together with a first round. I mean, you're basically saying you could trade 3 starters, 2 potential all-stars in those, or maybe 3 potential all-stars if it's a lottery pick for 1 all-star. So that seems like a pretty good deal based on your belief system.
I don't. It's extremely difficult to ask 2 guys who are the exact same player to play together. It's just tough. And so when you're Ant's talked about this at the beginning of the year, it's like, am I playing 2-guard? Am I playing combo guard? Am I playing point guard? Like, that's very distracting to him. And so, I'm looking at his numbers, 21-4. He shot 45% and 38 on threes. He's a career 39% 3-point shooter. No one can tell me that if you give if Dame's not there and Ant's starting and he's the guy, Ant's going to be 25-7. He's going to get 3 more assists just because he's running the point, and then he's going to score more because he can have the more freedom to take more shots because he's got the ball in his hands. So that kid's going to be 25-7 in that situation. So if I'm someone like Orlando, like I would even consider doing this. Like if this is kind of a small move you can make. Maybe it's picks, Sharpe, and something for Jaylen Brown. And then you trade Ant to Orlando for Wendell Carter. Like Ant with Banchero and the Wagners, and he's running the show, is going to be phenomenal, I think. And then someone like Wendell Carter, who's not an all-star caliber player, but if he's your starting 4 and you put Grant at the 3 or what have you, you're better. Because Wendell Carter can shoot the mid-range, he can shoot the 3, he passes well, he's obviously going to give you some defense. Like he's going to give you something you need, which is size, effective size. So yeah,
you already got better because you got Jaylen Brown. Like that's it. Right. So you already got better.
Yeah. So I mean, again, it's a fantasy, but if you're going Dame, Jaylen Brown, Grant,
I'll sign
Wendell Carter, and Nurkic, that's a contender, I think, automatically. So it could be something like that. But if you give Ant a team to run, Ant's putting up numbers. I'm telling you right now, he's putting up 25 and 7 because he's not, because his shooting ability and his quickness and his athleticism makes him unguardable. And he will continue to develop his play.
Cronin should bring you with him. Like he should just be like, hold on, are you potentially talking about Simons? Give me a second.
Yeah, let me put Fentress on the line. Let me tell you. Orlando, let me tell you right now. Here's what's going to happen with my man.
I've already figured it out.
Plus, he's from Orlando. He get the hometown hero. He's the next Penny. His name's Anfernee. What do you want?
Right. Exactly. It's already done. It's destiny. Come on, Kismet. We got to go. Yeah, I mean, I'm down with that. And to me, you just made a huge move. I mean, Jaylen Brown to me is a big move. It's not, to me, that's not a small move. So if you can get Jaylen Brown, I think similar things about if Tatum's not on that team, we know Jaylen Brown scores, 28 a night. I mean, he's got that kind of ability.
Right. And he plays D.
And he's a two-way play.
Yeah.
He's a two-way player. I think Jaylen Brown with Damian, I mean, that's a huge upgrade, from, in my opinion, over Ant, even with the potential just based on how they might mix. But, I'm not sold on it. I wish I could. And I worry about how weird it's going to get if they don't do it. You're like, like all these things we've been saying forever. The rumors about Damian wanting to leave Portland, Damian not being happy, they were not true, but they might be true. Like they could. There's a real scenario in 3 months where we're like, yeah, that's what I think he might be telling people that, you know. But the thing with Dame is he'll probably just say it. Like it won't. I don't know if it'll leak. He'll just be.
I think behind closed doors we'll just come to an agreement.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
It's time. We want you to contend. You want to contend. We can get a haul for you. Go somewhere else, contend for a championship, and then maybe come back.
You love this comeback.
I do love the comeback.
You think they come back? You love that. I'm like, it's not that easy.
I think it's extremely possible, especially with this relationship. Okay, let's get something real quick. You put in the rundown here. Is anyone on the roster guaranteed to be with this team next summer? Hell no. There's not one. There's not one player on this roster guaranteed to be here next year. Not one. No way.
That's why I put it in, because I was torturing myself for some reason watching the Blazer game last night. I'm like, I don't think there's one guy on this team that I would say I would, guarantee my life that he would be back next year. And that's a very rare thing. People say, well, anyone could be traded at any time. It's like, yeah, but not most teams don't have anyone could be traded. Like there's nobody that I mean, the most likely guy to come back is Dame, right? Like but there's a real scenario where he might not come back.
Right.
And they would trade anyone else for the right thing at this point. And some of them are free, so many of the guys that have played this year are free agents. Grant's a free agent. Drew Eubanks a free agent. We've been begging. We thought Winslow might come back and change the team. He's a free agent. And the guys they got, Cam Reddish, which, by the way, come on now. You're going to come to my side soon enough. Thibault. Yeah, Fentress is making the face like, I might have been wrong on that one. Thibault,
restricted. They're
Reddish,
restricted.
those guys.
Yeah.
Restricted. Like there's ways for them the Blazers to do nothing and not have those guys come back. And I just thought to myself, I don't think there's a guy I could put the stake in the ground and be like, he's coming back. I mean, Watford probably because his contract, Little probably, but
they all could be salary
throwing guys,
yeah,
right? They're like guys. They're nothings.
Right.
So bizarre. All right, we agree on that. That's that simple, and I just think it's very, very strange. I don't think I've ever been around a professional team where I could say, nope, I don't have anybody that could. I don't have anyone that I think will definitely be back. And I'm not sure about the coach either. Like, I think he's going to be back, and we can talk a little bit about that.
Let's end with that.
You checked into that, right? You talked to Chauncey, right?
Yeah, I asked him how he felt. He's like, yeah, he does it. There's nothing that's ever been said or intimated by anyone that it's even a remote possibility he could not be back. The only people talking about it are fans who want to cry about something, so you got to blame the coach, right? So you have these people on Twitter who 98% of them didn't play varsity basketball, but somehow they're basketball experts, but they're watching these games and know that this is all on Chauncey, which to me is just lunacy. And I've asked people, I say to people, well, give me your assessment of him and what's the problem? And they never give me anything concrete. Like it's just, they're losing, so we got to blame someone who must be the coach. So then here's what's happening. Everyone blaming Chauncey is basically ignoring everything you said about this team, which is bad. You think it's bad, and they've had injuries. So how are you going to blame the coach? It doesn't make any sense. So I think it would make Cronin look ridiculous because Cronin's been on the job for a little over a year. He hasn't done what he said his plan yet. I don't blame him because he had a year and a half long plan. So for him, who wanted Jody Allen to roll the dice on him to throw Chauncey under the bus and then go hire another coach, well, you might as well get rid of Dame unless Dame's secretly on board with that, because now you're going to have another coach after 2 years after you got rid of Stotts, who went to the playoffs 8 straight years. So it just looks dysfunctional. Like it's like, okay, what are you guys doing? You're blaming Chauncey for this mess, and it's just like, okay. And then you're going to go out and maybe pull off a big trade and then say, oh, now we're going to move on to someone else. It just seems weird to me. And I just don't think, I've talked about this before. He hasn't done anything to distinguish himself. But he hasn't done anything where you say this is his fault. I don't think the team is underachieved because of the coach. I think the team is underachieved because it just too many injuries and didn't have the depth to fill in. And Chauncey has talked about so someone in the starting lineup gets hurt. Who am I turning to? Nasir, this is Nasir's first year ever playing meaningful minutes on a team that's trying to win. Ant's first year ever, and he's one of the main guys, but first year ever playing as a starter on a team that's trying to win. Watford is a kid. Jabari is a kid. Sharpe's a kid. So who are you turning to on the bench to give you solid depth? Winslow gets hurt. Hart was a money. He was a starter, but then Hart, they ended up moving him. They didn't think they'd bring him back. But when they had Hart and their whole starting five whole, they were above 500. So I just can't see how you blame Chauncey.
Yeah, I've told you I wouldn't even think about letting him go this year. And he has one more year. I mean, next year, no NBA coaches don't go 3 years
without making the
finishing,
playoffs, right?
or not even like, depending on where they go. I mean, his first 2 years, they finish at the bottom, right? Like they're not, and I'm not blaming him. I give him a C or an incomplete because all those things you said. No, I don't think it's his fault they're this bad. But I also say, I don't think they've, overachieved in the sense that he's gotten wins where other coaches wouldn't have, right? Like if Terry Stotts coached this team, they might have 5 more wins because Stotts did prove over time to always, find to elevate players that were, when they didn't play for him, weren't as good. So he hasn't established himself yet, but he's also never coached in the NBA as a head coach, and he only coached in the NBA for 1 year. If you hire Chauncey Billups, based on his resume, there's no way you fire him because then your process was silly. Your process to hire a coach without NBA experience and expect him to take a team that doesn't have parts and be a contender is ridiculous. So, but I understand some of the frustration, some of the things they've done at the end of quarters or, last seconds, or not changing at halftime. You're like, yeah, it doesn't look great, but at the same time, I'm not one to know exactly what went wrong. Right. Sometimes the coach does all the right things and the players do the wrong things. Well, there you go. And you don't know because he doesn't. One thing Chauncey doesn't do, he's honest when they have no effort, but he doesn't really throw guys under the bus. So he's not going to be the guy that says, "Oh, I called the right play. They just ran it wrong." So, yeah, he's got another year. I think that, or at least the front half of the next year, right? Well, I'm just saying, like, if there are problems, and if
they get Jalen Brown and Embiid, and they're start off 10-20.
Oh gosh,
He'd probably fire himself. Right? You know what? This ain't for me. All right, we good? I think we covered a lot. We covered a lot.
Yeah, we did.
All right. So your assignment, my assignment, we got to start looking at the draft. We got to start having some names. We got to start like debating.
Right, beyond 2.
So yeah. So at least look at like the top 8. Not the top 8 in the next week. And just like look at the top 8 mock. Go on YouTube, search their highlights, watch them, and then you're an expert. Boom. That's all you gotta do.
It's that easy, baby.
It's that easy. It's not rocket science.
We'll do.
All right. Thanks for listening to the Blazer Focus podcast. I still have to sit through 3 more home games, including 2 massacres this week against the Kings. I am not going to travel the rest of the season, though. And we'll be back to talk more about what this team can do in the offseason. I don't think you can talk too much about that. I think that's what people want to hear about, right? That's what people care about now. What's going to happen in the offseason? We can talk that to death. Right, Craig?
Well, we don't want to talk about the Pelicans game. Not to talk about that.
Dude, I was on eBay. They got down 20 in the first quarter. I was on eBay. Anyway, thanks for listening. Click that subscribe button. Give us a positive rating. We appreciate it, and we'll catch you next time.